My name is Daniel Eischen. I'm the chair of the British Chamber of Commerce for Luxembourg, and I'm very happy to welcome you tonight because this is an evening session. So tonight to this day number 4 of this year's Leadership Forum, a new format, a week-long format, day number 4. Very happy to have you all on the call because I think this is going to be a very special call. It's a very special moment. Yeah, this is a very special day for me, for the British Chamber, because you probably have heard the news. There's lots of things going on. We have heard news that are concerning about the evolution of the COVID crisis in Luxembourg. So we will not really talk about this tonight, but I think it's going to be a very special day, and the days that are about to happen will also have a strong influence, surely, on all of us. But still, it's great to have you here. I would like to be very positive about this because the conference is supposed to be very positive, because we're supposed to get insights, inspiration, ideas about how we can manage our companies in days of uncertainty. And tonight we're going to talk to Minister Paulette Lenert about this. We had already 3 days of conferences, and I really have to say that they were very successful. We had every day we had more than 60 people on the calls, and the feedback we received from you, our members, our friends, our community, were very positive and very encouraging. So today is day number 4, and we're going to talk tonight about taking decisions in times of uncertainty. And I am very happy to welcome Paulette Lenert tonight together with us. Paulette, and it's a very interesting story between Paulette Lenert and the British Chamber of Commerce, because we've seen Paulette Lenert the first time on February 6th this year for a lunch business meeting where Mrs. Lenert talked a little bit about her career, about the decisions that pushed her to move over to the world of politics, and also the experiences she had in a new job, because she had actually just been in the job as Minister of Health for 2 days. So it was her 3rd day in the job, talking to us on February 6th, and the world was still bright and positive. And 2-3 weeks later, we started to discover what we all know now, the COVID corona crisis, and all the things that have happened since. So it's been a long road for all of us, but surely for Minister Lenert, those last 7-8 months in the job, lots of uncertainties, lots of questions, a lot of discussions. It's been for us business owners a very challenging time. It's been for our families challenging times, and these times are surely going to go on for a number of weeks and months to come. I would say a very special thanks to Minister Lenert, both for being here tonight with us and giving us the opportunity to ask questions, but also thank her and the other colleagues in the government for the job that has been done over the last months for our communities, for our businesses. I think these are times that are essential for us in the way we're going to move forward, in the way we're going to take decisions for our businesses, for our people, in the markets we're in. And I think dialogue, exchange, having the opportunity to talk to each other is going to be essential, has been essential over the last weeks, but it's going to be even more essential in the months and the weeks to come. So thanks a lot for everything that has been done over the last months, and really looking forward to even more have the opportunity to work together with you in the months to come. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Sarah Bette, who's going to moderate tonight's event and who's going to talk to Minister Paulette Lenert. So welcome again to all of you. Thanks for being here, and I hope you're going to enjoy the exchange.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's just wait for a moment and to see that the minister has also switched on her camera so that we can get started with our conversation.
There she is.
Yeah,
see you later.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Minister, I'm thrilled to have you here today. I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to have this conversation with you. As Daniel already mentioned, your first few months as a Minister of Health for Luxembourg really has been quite the journey. If we think back 12 months, none of us were expecting this to come. And I'm pretty sure that when you were considering moving into the role of minister and you were thinking about your priorities, that managing a global pandemic might not have been at the top of that list. And for leaders such as yourselves, this situation has presented so many challenges, perhaps also opportunities. And I'd love to spend this evening finding out more about how you have experienced this, these last few months as a leader. What was important to you, and also what learnings you might have had as a result of this situation. So that's the plan for today. I've promised to make it as relaxing as possible, knowing that you've got all these other stresses coming at you from all different directions at the moment. So we'll keep it as relaxing as possible. For our audience, I'd just like to make you aware there is a Q&A button at the bottom right. If you'd like to ask questions, please feel free to submit them at any time. I will be asking questions myself for the first 30 minutes or so, and then we'll try and get to your questions, or we will get to your questions and try and answer as many of those as possible. So please use the Q&A for your questions. Thank you. So, decision making, I think, is a topic that I'm very curious about. And certainly as a minister over the last months and weeks and now very critically, you're having to make very critical decisions that have a huge impact on people's personal lives, on the economy, on schooling, on all these different areas of life. And presumably you did not actually have that much data initially to make these decisions. So I'd love to hear more about how you and your team went about making decisions in the absence of data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is data is really was a very tricky issue in the beginning of the pandemic because the unknown was so huge. Actually, nobody knew much about this virus. So we were focusing first on international information we could gather from China, and very much concentrated on building up our teams here. So that's what helped me in the first days, because I was, as you said, really new in the job. So it's really quite a coincidence that that we met right at the beginning when I took over the resort, and now really on a very critical day again in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes.
But yes, in the first weeks and days, this unknown was really a very, very huge burden. The virus still is unknown, but to a lesser extent, I would say. But in the beginning, yeah, we were just concentrating on who we were, what were our strengths, what do we know, who are the partners we need to have now around us. And that was very, very important. And of course, utmost challenging for me, as I was new in this administration as well. So usually it takes like 1 or 2 months at least in order to get to know the people you are going to work with over the next months and years. And so this was really, really heavy, because I got to know the people by really right in the middle of a pandemic. And so maybe it was an opportunity, because when you have a stressful situation, you really see people in immediate action. So otherwise it probably would have taken much more time to just get to know each other more slowly in a slower piece. And so everything was accelerated for the better and the worse. So
yes, and in fact, that's what we heard from one of our speakers yesterday, who was saying that, you know, this crisis is an opportunity to effect change that would normally take years. You can practically do it overnight in a situation like this. Yeah. So how did you balance then the sort of the needs of keeping people safe from a health point of view, but then also all these other situations where you knew that people might be let down? So how did you make that decision?
Well, we were working really closely on the team of the government as well. So everybody has his own responsibilities, but we always try to have really the big picture. Because there's certainly a public health issue, but there's also a societal issue. We have to keep society going and moving. And so it's a very difficult balance, actually, this pandemic, because you have to keep all the time an eye on what are the collateral damages you might cause by any decision. Yes. And so it's really, really important to work as a team at the government level, just as well as inside the stuff around me now. So we really try to have a 360-degree view on what is the impact of any measure we're going to take, and that's what makes it really tricky, because we don't know the situation that's ahead. Very particular to this day now, because we have this switch in numbers, very significant increase. Yes. And then you just have to anticipate many scenarios, actually, the worst case and the one you would like to happen, yeah, and also having this balancing issue in mind is very difficult. Yeah, it would be easier if you just could focus on the health issue, but life is more than just health. Health is certainly a major part of it, and very important, but there are other parts too, and these become even more important the more time goes on. If this was a pandemic for 1 or 2 months, it would be different, but now we're just facing like half a year and beyond, and that makes it not easier, let's say.
No, and it's just very interesting to observe from the outside how governments are making different decisions. You know, presumably they all have similar data sets, but there are so many different decisions being made. So it just shows, you know, you can manage this situation in many different ways, and it's difficult to know which is going to be the right outcome at the end. Absolutely. So you mentioned your team, and obviously we have a lot of people watching this evening who lead teams as well. Could you tell us a little bit about your priorities as a leader, as you have been leading them through this time? What has been most important to you there from a team perspective?
It's really the teamwork and the networking as well, because I used to work in teams, and I really strongly believe in the power of teams. So it is important really to spot within your network in a situation like this, which is really unknown and goes far beyond your usual business of your company or your administration, to really quickly identify what you need now. We needed very quickly somebody on logistics. So networking was important, and I was really lucky to have a good network within the public administration from my former job, which allowed me really to to know where to look at to get the people I needed in this moment, and then really setting up the team and getting confidence into the team. So everybody needs to trust each other, and that's quite difficult, because when you know your team, it's much easier. And if you have to start knowing the team by leading the crisis, it's quite a challenge. But it's pretty much the same than in normal times, but in a stronger extent. So everything goes quicker, and you just have to trust in your decisions. And yeah, it was very much a question of trust for me in the beginning. Yeah, relying on what experiences I could have from former jobs, and just trusting in myself to take the right decisions. If you don't trust yourself, it's difficult to expect trust from your colleagues in the team.
Absolutely. And so as you take these decisions and as you lead your team, do you have any particular values or guiding principles that help you make these decisions and that help you bring people together and build that trust?
Well, it's very much in listening to the people. So I'm quite open. I know that people know many things, and they not always know what you don't know. So it's very important to get into this dialogue and open up the knowledge that is there, and to share it. So I really, in terms of value, I really much believe in sharing knowledge. That's important. It's not such a common culture, actually, because people, especially in public administration, are very much used to work by themselves on their topics. So to open up this sharing what everybody knows and getting the best out of it is still quite a challenge to have it in the management day-to-day life. But that's something important. Yes, to trust, having being honest as well. So for me, being new, it was quite a challenge for me to have the people very quickly at the level that they would just tell me what they think, and also really be honest on decisions that might not be right. So really have this honesty of talking openly without being afraid of consequences or whatever. So having kind of a secured environment to be free to talk freely.
Right, that's very interesting. I was leading a group this morning talking about that concept of psychological safety and how you do make people feel that they're safe to take risks. So is there anything specific you were doing to put people at ease and to let them know that actually it was okay perhaps to question your decisions or to question, you know, why you were doing things the way you were? How did you encourage people to do that?
Well, by telling them, just by telling them, and I just try not to blame people for decisions taken. So I think it's something you have to show and to live really. And by the time I'm quite happy now, the team is really well, works well together, and yeah, it's a situation that really brings you closer together. Also, it's a very stressful situation, so people tend to get closer to each other, and that works pretty well now. And it's very important to rely on other people, because you can't stand the crisis like this by yourself. It's impossible. You really need to have some allies, partners. Also, the critical thinkers are needed. You need people who challenge your ideas, because once you're gone into one direction, it's important to have people who come up and say, "Are you really sure? And did you think of this and that?" And so, that works quite good.
Yes, and of course, mistakes at the moment can have a huge impact further down the line. So it's really important to bring everybody together to have a voice and to express their opinions about things. Absolutely. You just mentioned the team being exposed to a lot of stress, and I'm sure other leaders are in the situation as well, where you know, maybe they've had cases of COVID-19 in their businesses. They have to make the decisions about whether to close the business or not, or at least have people work from home. There is the whole aspect of mental health, people feeling isolated, the loneliness, not being able to speak to families. So looking at sort of your team and your experience with this, how have you helped your team through this time? What have you said to them that's important for their well-being and of course your well-being as well? Because this has been such a long time and relentless really in terms of you know, not getting a break.
Yes, it is challenging. Actually, right now it is very challenging because you have this winter ahead, and that's difficult. So what we try to do during summer is really encouraging people just to take off a few days and relax, and we would just rotate on relaxing. That's what we try to do somehow over summer, just keeping people safe to take off like 1 or 2 weeks and just get back. And I guess we have to go on with this, but it's really hard. I must admit, I have never gone through such a situation over such a long period. It's really consuming, and I can see it on the whole team. So what is good up to now, we could somehow handle that. Not everybody is down at the same time, so you always you just get to recognize when people start to get down, and it's just a challenge to use your energy you have at that time to get people up again, and they will do the same vice versa. So and a lot of humor. I think you should never stop spending at least a little time in the day with funny things, and just remembering that you live and it's life. I mean, you just have to open up some brackets to have some very basic time for eating, for a drink, or just for a laugh, let's say.
Yes, we had a speaker.
It's a therapy. So.
We had a speaker on Tuesday who was speaking about energy, and he was speaking about that we need to restore ourselves and feed our energy sources. And he was saying, obviously, body is a big one. You know, making sure you have the right food and sleep and basic things like that. He was also talking about the importance of connection. So I think that's one of the things that you were saying. You know, connecting other people through humor. You know, showing that you're in this together. He was also speaking about sort of the mind, how you need to perhaps, you know, take moments of stillness to give yourself time to regenerate, and being there inspiring each other and inspiring others, and ensuring that your soul to a certain extent is inspired as well. So I think based on what you're saying, it sounds like you're trying to do exactly those things in your team at the moment.
Yeah, at least it's what I need for myself to restore myself. It's really the silence you need, because the day is really busy, and then especially now these days, and this is really a very particular day, I can tell you. I didn't expect it to be like this when I accepted the invitation. And it's yeah, the most challenging for me is just to find this time off from time to time, just to have the mind cleared. And because you're just overwhelmed with yeah, anxieties and questions, and the mind needs to be still at some time in order to, yeah, to reflect again. So this is really something I try to do. I try to keep my sleep, to sleep well. It's very important. Sleep is restoring. So just having my talk with myself in the evening before I go to bed is a good way for me, at least up to now, to get through it. So I just tell myself, now the day is over, it's time to sleep, and have a good start the day after.
So have that sort of evening ritual to let yourself disconnect from the stresses of the day. Absolutely. I can't imagine. I'd probably not sleep at all if I were in your position, ever. So thinking about then, I think we talked about trusting in your decisions earlier on a little bit. And it would be really interesting to hear, just from a sort of a resilience point of view, when you're, faced with criticism, people don't always agree with what you're saying or what you're deciding. How have you developed this resilience to be able to say, no, actually, I do trust in my decisions, and this is the right path forward for us, even if not everybody is going to be in agreement with it?
Well, to some extent, I'm probably lucky to have been in a job in the judiciary, so I had to take decisions every day. Right. And that's helpful, because it's not that usual in life to take decisions. You can go through your life without taking decisions, leaving it to others. So I had some exercise on this, and I guess it helped, because when you have a case in a justice case, you always have two sides, and you have to come to your decision. And so that helps, and that's what I try to do now, because you can imagine you have all different tendencies around this pandemic. So you have the criticals, you have the people who say, well, this is nothing, this is just a little grippette. And so it's really to the extremes, and it's to me, it's easy to listen and just, and then I need to get back and come to what is now my conviction, and take a distance from what I heard and get to my inner conviction about something. And I'm very much work on, on data, on facts. So it's important really to have, right now we really have a lot of monitoring into place. So for the last day, for instance, you see other countries, and then you see numbers, and you compare. So this is the same, and it's just to take this distance again. And no, it's not exactly the same. We have different indicators, and get back to the facts, get back to the ground, I would say. And then it's just to ground it on what is really fact, and keep some distance from emotions as well. Because it's the whole discussion is really, really emotional, and it gets even more and more over the weeks to come. I'm quite convinced of that, because it's in the beginning, people were like in a state of shock. The virus was coming, it was the absolute unknown. By now, everybody has read so much about it. There's so much pseudo expertise as well about this virus. So it's a completely different setting, much more stronger feelings in different directions. And it's even more difficult, yes, to keep your distance and not being biased or influenced by emotional talk. Yeah, that's quite difficult.
Yes, I can imagine. And yeah, risk taking and emotions are very closely linked, and you become very, very fearful in certain situations. Yes, and certainly as the pandemic has dragged on, I suppose it's also exhausting to take decisions all the time, and just sort of keep going, and have people not agree with you all the time. So it's very, very useful that you've been able to take that step back and look at the data and just keep focusing on that. And I think that's a good tip also for any leader in positions. Is the data there that is showing that this actually was the right decision to make? This is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. Somehow you need to put in place some things you can hold on. So you say, when things are getting worse, what am I going to look at? And just to put it into place before this situation, so that okay, I was reflecting on this before. When this situation comes, I will hold on this, I will rely on this. So, and this is the kind of confidence you have. You still have the unknown, but somehow, I mean, if you reflect really on what is going to guide you during this phase ahead, it's helpful when you go through it. It's really helpful. And that's, for example, it is about sleep, very basic thing, because when you have these stressful situations and you start to reflect, what do I really need? I need my sleep, so you know it, and you just won't reflect on it. You just know you need it, and you have to care for it, and that's the way. Yeah, it has to be clear somehow ahead what's really basic, what you hold on, what is grounding you, and what is restoring you as well. And when you know these things, you don't need to discover them during the crisis, because you know it, and then you know where to turn to in order to get back to yourself.
Yes, and I think people tend to forget that some of these basic needs are actually strategically important, because if you're overtired and trying to make decisions, that is probably not the best frame of mind to be in. So actually, in order to be able to do the best possible job, sleep is extremely important and necessary. So thinking then about your learnings, and you started to touch on a couple of things there. Is there anything that you could share with us that's positively surprised you in terms of how things have been done over the past few months, how you've worked with your team? What has actually been an opportunity and has actually been very positive?
Oh, there were a lot of positive aspects. Above all, really the solidarity. Everybody was really standing there, my whole network of friends and people I just didn't know at all before. And when this crisis came, you really noticed there was a kind of national solidarity. People just came in here and helped wherever they could. And this solidarity just somehow unleashed a great creativity as well, because we sat together with people who didn't know each other before, and we had a common challenge, and we were just like in a hackathon, let's say. We were just in a very positive dynamic to say how are we going to deal with this. And there were really very creative moments which I didn't experience at all to that extent in my former life in public service. So this was really surprising and made me really enthusiastic, because I was working in my former job on developing leadership in public service. So these were really great moments for me, I must say, to see that this can work. Also this partnering with people from private sector who came in here to help very spontaneously, sitting together with people from administration. So it was really a very cool mix of talents and stories, and very fruitful in terms of innovation, actually, and flexibility, because I think Luxembourg really showed that it could be very flexible. We were extremely agile in the beginning on logistics, and we took decisions within hours, overnight, and this was possible only out of this very magical move of solidarity of different people from different horizons coming just spontaneously together and reflecting together.
Yes, it really has brought out the best in people in certain situations. That's very encouraging to hear that. And on the flip side then, presumably not everything has gone the way that you wanted it to. Are there any learnings where you say you might have done things differently in hindsight?
The flip side is certainly about the duration of the whole thing, because this magic moment was in the beginning. There was this overwhelming situation, the unknown, and everybody drew together, and then came this the down, actually, which took everybody together somehow. I think we all had a very bad time after like 2 or 3 months when you just couldn't see the end of it, and you just now we have this again. It's really lasting. And then I must say, the flip side is that there's no plan for the marathon. Actually, it's how do you keep really in this crisis mode over months and months? It's very difficult, and then I must say I never ever thought about a situation like this, and in my mind I was never prepared on this. I was prepared certainly to have some to take a decision with different people trying to influence me, but being present and positive over such a long time, it's really difficult, and there's no plan, and it's really lacking resilience. I think it's something we could train for the future, like preparing situations like this mentally, and just preparing for the unknown, and it's something. Yeah, in our country we're just not prepared to this. We didn't have or any. Our generation is not used to handle such really critical situations over such a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That must be, yes, that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about sort of young emerging leaders, again, so you'd mentioned earlier that you felt quite well prepared for taking decisions because of your experience beforehand. Now, leaders who have not yet been confronted with this type of situation, how could they build their leadership toolkit to be prepared in future for, you know, say if in 10, 20 years time, the next pandemic hits, what can sort of emerging leaders be doing now to get ready for a potential situation like that again?
Well, I think management should give emerging leaders opportunities to take decisions already at an early stage. I think that earlier you get into this situation to take decisions, the better you get at it. So I think we should really overthink the management style and just involve young people right from the beginning and giving them room and opportunities to take decisions. Because if you're all the time guided, it's difficult to get out of this comfort zone as well and just stand up and take decisions or just speak up and have an opinion on something. So that's already also taking a decision. If you have to speak up and just express what you think about the situation and having this, what was the expression you used, is psychological freedom? Or
safety, psychological safety.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I didn't know the expression, but it gives back very, very well what I meant when I was talking. You have to feel safe to be free to reflect and express yourself, and expression is already a decision taking. You have to decide for yourself. I speak up, I have an opinion, and I just express it to my superior or to colleagues. So that's probably already a very good training.
Right. So I'm hearing decision making is a really important one. So practice that early on. Learn how to perhaps create a psychologically safe environment so that your team will feel comfortable speaking up and contributing to a discussion in your presence, as it were. Is there anything else that you would add to that?
I don't know. I don't have that much management experience myself, because I was working in the judiciary with a really small team, so it's not comparable to having a big administration. So this is quite new for me as well. I must say it's only a few years back, and I don't have the I just didn't have the time really to sit back and analyze this. I might do it in a few years, have a history on it. But basically, I must say, for me, I really developed within the teams. Everything I did was all, and I'm fascinated also by the energy that you can get out of a team and partnerships. It's really the way I like to work, and probably because I like it, that's why I go for it as well. And, so it's setting up a safe environment, having people. If people feel good together, if they enjoy working together, I think there comes something nice out of it. So maybe just put an accent on creating opportunities for people just to get to know each other and feel safe one with another, enjoying to work together. It's very simple actually. If you like to come to your work, if you really feel good when you come to the office and to see your friends and colleagues and your team, I think that's already a good setting to get things out of it.
Absolutely, creating a very positive environment in which everybody can flourish, essentially, right, and bring their best sides to the table. Great. I think we have one more question for me before we start taking audience questions. So the theme of this week has really been navigating uncharted waters and, having these dragons at the edge of the map and what to do. So would you have perhaps 3 tips for our audience on how best to navigate uncharted waters from your experience?
Well, I think 3 tips. I would say you have to stay on solid ground. If the environment is unknown and uncertain and moving, you have to be on solid ground for yourself, to stand on your feet and know who you are, and just try to have some how you call it in English, some repères, some milestones or something around you which you can hold on. Yeah, that's probably the restoring landmarks you need from a professional point of view and from a personal point of view. What can I hold on? Who can I hold on? And how can I restore myself? And just keep, not being biased by emotions coming up and by fear, actually, because fear is never helpful. So. Of course, the unknown is something we're all afraid about, but if we just go into this fear, we just couldn't make clear decisions anymore, and it's definitely not helpful to be in fear. So it's just trying to get back to what your orientation is and what you need to navigate on, having a precise maybe also like a target. You say, I want to get out of this.
Your goal, yes.
And then always testing whatever you are going to decide, just is this really helpful for my target, or how is it biasing my target? It's basically like navigating on the ship. Yes,
and then adjusting as you need to, as you go. Yes. Well, that's a good analogy, obviously, because an emotional captain might not make the right decisions. So that's very true. Right. Well, those were my questions. I can see that there's some questions coming through in the Q&A. So I'll just take a moment to check those ones out and select some. We've got till another 15 minutes for questions, so we might have 4 or 5 questions we can go to. So, a lot's come through here. Here's a question with an international aspect to it. So would you like more collaboration between the different countries, between the action of the different countries? There are different rules, even just across the border in some cases. So how would you judge that situation, and what perspective do you have on that?
Oh, definitely, because public health should have a higher rank, I think, in terms of international cooperation. It's in Europe, probably it wasn't really the top subject because we're quite good off here, but this pandemic shows us that public health is definitely an issue that should be treated above the boundaries of the countries. So it's that there could be a better cooperation, and I think every single country is realizing this. So we're trying to consolidate what we have as cooperation, but there was no really institutional cooperation up to the challenge, I would say. But there's really that's definitely an issue. Yeah, that's really needed, and it would have helped us because everybody was like, with the head on its national issues, and with no room for setting up this collaboration in the middle of the crisis. These things should be done now, afterwards, in the debrief of it. I think we should really put some accent on this and strengthen it, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Here, more of a scientific question. So with so many scientists having different opinions on the virus and the usefulness of the various measures, how do you know who to trust?
Well, there I'm coming back to my team, because I'm quite lucky that the director of my health administration is an expert in maladies infectieuses. So and we have I have a medical team on this, so, and I completely rely on my team. I have to rely on them, and I honestly rely on my team. So that's maybe easier for me, as I'm not a scientist. So I have a natural tendency to rely on my team, and there are many people. So I trust that they are doing a good job and have a good feeling to judge what is serious and what is not. So they are working in a net also. So I have a certain number of experts in-house, but they are very well connected to the research, to the academics here in the country, to the medical people on the field, in the hospitals and so on. They are working really in a network that it's very reliable. So I trust them.
Right. That's presumably also an international network?
Yes, they also are part of international networks, of course. They are exchanging regularly with their counterparts of our neighbor countries at the European level. and so they get some good guiding influence as well from other countries.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Lots of questions coming in here. Let me just see. What are the lessons we should learn? Very short question, but a very profound one. What lessons should we learn from the situation?
Well, we should. It's a lesson of humility. I think we're not prepared that something as tiny as a virus could just hold our complete society on hold like this. So humility, and then also the importance of public health. So we tend to take it for granted, and it's far from being granted. So we really have to invest on this if we want to be solid and robust and resilient from this point of view. We have to keep an eye on it. It's really a political issue, public health, and it shouldn't be just considered as a technical issue. It's really a political issue, a policy issue.
Right, thank you. Let me just look. There are lots and lots of questions. Here's a leadership question. Are the different ministries modifying the profile of people who they would recruit to work within their different groups based on what they now know about what is required in times of high stress? So hiring people perhaps who have an agile and flexible mindset, as an example. So how will recruitment be affected in the ministries based on your experiences, do you think?
Well, I already had before quite an opinion on how to recruit. So I really like to challenge people's agility, their openness as well. So actually the capacity to be innovative. I think it's very important, especially in public administration. We are there to serve the common interest, and common interest changes by nature. So you shouldn't be static. You should be really open and anticipate. So this capacity of anticipating what happens, of being flexible, agile, it's really these are really key competencies and skills that should be really front line when you hire.
Mm-hmm. Are there any new ones you might add to the wish list of competencies now you've been through this and you've seen what actually is required of people in a crisis? So are there any other ones you would now add?
Well, also expertise, of course. You need some generalists, but also really specific expertise. It's very important to evaluate what it takes in your administration, what types of expertise you need. Well, for instance, you mentioned data in the introduction. We were weak on data, so we had to put in place monitoring. So there's a whole digital aspect. It's important. You really have to have the right people in place who have these skills to set up data management, and then you have to train the whole staff to work with it. But if at the basis you don't have the expertise to set up a data-based administration or company, it's difficult to get the whole staff to really recognize what is the return on invest if you do it, if you go for it. And so that was a challenge, and it's something that is too much underestimated, to my opinion. If you want to have this digital change, and we really need to invest on training, yes, but also on really specific expertise to set it up. So, and that's really expertise. It's not just training the whole teams on on being digital. It's really to think what it needs to make your organization digital, and that's really requires some type of expertise that is lacking and that you have to think of to have these people in-house.
Yeah, and there's also a massive change project as well, right? Culture change probably as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I have another question here. Somebody asking about secrets. It seems like there's a fairly united front from Luxembourg's politicians, rather different from the anger and opposing views being seen in other countries like perhaps UK and the USA. What's the secret to Luxembourg's cooperation?
I don't know, probably it's the size of the country. So we need to stay strong together in order not to be overwhelmed from others. I guess it's due to the specificity of our country. And so we have to maybe also the closeness. It's very easy to get in touch in nothing of time. I mean, you can call if you have really decisions to take. You can really reach out easily to different people who are in charge of very different things. So it's networking is easier, I must say, in a country of the size of Luxembourg and in a bigger country.
Right, so that's definitely an advantage.
Yeah.
Just looking at the questions again, there's some really interesting questions here. I hope we get a chance to get to all of them. So here's a question linked to our speaker tomorrow. So we have a speaker tomorrow whose book Uncharted actually gave us the title for this event. And she is going to talk tomorrow about just in case thinking. Mm-hmm. Every country had a pandemic on their risk register, but it's hard to allocate money to something with a low probability. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you would perhaps have in place for the future now that you've experienced the situation?
Yeah, we definitely are going to review our pandemic plan out of this experience. Well, I think every country had to learn, what it meant not to have protection material in place. These were things we just couldn't imagine before, that we would be out of face masks or things like that. So this is again a lesson of humility that we all took, and I think we learned a lot about that. So we are reflecting already right now what is really essential in terms of medication, in terms of equipment. What do you really need to survive in such a situation? And this really, these critical materials, I think we have a very different view on them now, and I think it will be easier to argue on it, because it's not as abstract anymore. By the time the plans were developed, it was abstract, because nobody could imagine something like this to happen in Europe. But now I think that's maybe the good thing of it. Now we have the experience, and I'm sure this is really easing up preparedness for the future.
So that sounds actually less that it was a problem. It wasn't so much a problem of allocation of funds as actually not knowing what would be concretely needed in this kind of a situation. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Really nice comment here. I just wanted to feed that back as well. We would like to all stand up and salute Ms. Lenert and her team for all the great work they have done and are doing. Thank you very much. So that came through in the Q&A as a comment as well. So it's nice to be able to give you that feedback there as well. In a crisis, your time and also the time of others is at a premium. So this is a time management question. What does work best for you to manage your time?
If I would know, it's still really a big challenge to set priorities. So I was overwhelmed at one moment by work, because it's just so much. You could just go through for days and weeks, and then you realize that you have to reserve this really precious time on your rest, to have the rest. Otherwise you cannot be productive during the day. And then just try to allocate also, and that was really important now for September, because the crisis goes on, but life also goes on. So now I just try to care also and to set on the agenda some of the major other issues we have in the health department, and there are many of them. Just to mention the human resources issue, which is a high priority policy issue here in Luxembourg, and it's even highlighted now by the crisis. But we need to work on this. So I try to put on little spots of different things, and have a balance on priorities. Just knowing that every day, emergencies will come in. So it's difficult. It's really hard to handle this over such a long period. And quite frankly, I don't have the magical recipe to this yet. So
so if anybody has
many books I read on this, all my time management books, I have gone through them again, but in the end it's a difficult situation. It's just
if anybody's listening and has a magical response, please put it in the Q&A now. Well, presumably delegation is also a big part of managing as well, knowing what you need to do yourself and what actually can be taken care of by your team as well. So lots more questions. I think we probably have time for a couple more, just looking at the timing. this is a question about cross-border workers. So are there any plans to coordinate further initiatives for cross-border workers during this pandemic?
Well, not yet, but it's something we definitely have to think about in the future, because while we have been cross-border working in the middle of the action when we took over some people from France, so this went really smoothly and easily between administrations, but we don't really have a cooperation pattern in place. And definitely it is an issue for Luxembourg. We have like 2/3 of our staff in the health sector is coming, crossing the border every day, and that's really, it's a difficult situation. It's a weakness for us, but I also really fully understand our neighbor countries who say, well, Luxembourg is just absorbing the people we also need. So we definitely have to reflect on this in future and set up some platform for reflection on this. And it's really an issue. You can see it on the news right now, because obviously we had to hire more people. So people now are leaving their jobs in our neighboring country, which is understandably dramatic to them. But I must say I don't have a solution to this right now, but it's really an issue for it's the biggest issue actually for our health system. It's really this human resources. So the needs are growing, population is growing, and we just don't have the stuff to. If we just continue to work like we work now, it's just mission impossible. So we really have to rethink the whole system. How can we organize it differently? How can we get technology into it? How can we have a better collaboration, cross-border collaboration? But the challenge is the same for all the European countries. We're just lacking human resources for these jobs, and so we have to rethink the job. I think we have to rethink the system and the job itself, and see how we can innovate and maybe bring technology into it, and just reflect on prevention as well. We should maybe try not to stay healthier for a longer time. Yes. That would be energy saving on the staff side as well.
Right. Yeah, so it looks like there are lots of ideas that could potentially be looked at once we're out of this pandemic and you have time to breathe again.
Yeah.
I think perhaps we have one final question. And actually, this is a question that's aimed at supporting you, I think. So is there anything specific that the business community in Luxembourg can do to support the government's response to the crisis in this next phase?
Oh, yes, definitely. I would just really urge to get to telework as far as it's possible, because what we have now is like an emergence of the cases. They're just growing, so we can see them overall in the population, and what we really strongly need is just to get the movement a little bit down again. So if we can really promote teleworking everywhere it's possible, I think it's a good thing for business, even in a longer perspective, because that's where we want it to go to a stronger digitalization. So it could be an opportunity really to rethink the business and be ready to introduce this remote working and these new times of interaction we just have here. Everybody has really discovered now how you can have meetings in a remote way. And I think that's really one of the prior things to do, just to reflect every business for its, well, it's not possible everywhere, but there are a lot of opportunities and possibilities to rethink the way we work in order just to get this contacts a little bit down. That's really what we need, and we need it over the next months. I mean, it's an illusion to wait for a magic solution within weeks. So we have to reflect for the next months, because the pandemic is still there. So even if we can get it down now, as soon as we start moving as normal, it will just pop up again. So it's definitely reflection is needed, and sharing experiences maybe would also be helpful if companies could just share their best practices and set up platforms to share about what works, what doesn't work.
Right,
could be helpful.
So again, making the most of that networking aspect that you were speaking about, that helped you get through the situation, so that companies really have each other to support and lean on. Super. Well, I think I got to most of the questions. Apologies if I wasn't able to cover everything in the time that we had. It has been such a pleasure and such a privilege to speak with you this evening. Thank you very much for your time. We know it's been, you know, a bad day today for you, so really appreciate you taking the time out and for sharing your personal stories as well. And it's been very, very inspiring. And I hope that all of our audience can go away with some new ideas, how to be a leader in this situation, and what they can do to help this situation become easier for everyone. So thank you very, very much. Daniel, would you like to say a few words to close today's session?
Wow, thank you very much. It's really been, I can just echo what Sarah just said. It's been a real privilege listening to you. It's been really inspiring. I think pretty early on in your presentation, your exchange, you said, I've written it down, if you don't trust yourself or you don't trust in yourself, it is difficult to trust other people. I think that's already a very, very strong message. And I think very often people forget that. I can really relate to that. I think many among us can relate to that, because it really takes you strength, it takes consistency, it takes trust in what you think and what you say. But that cannot work without, on the other hand, having an approach of empathy, of collaboration, of working together with people and also accepting them into the equation, because that's the way you're going to create trust, proximity. So it's a very delicate equation. It's really been very, very interesting to listen to what you said. So thank you very, very much, Minister Lenert. Thank you very much, Sarah. It's been, I think, really great job, really good moderation. So thank you. I would also like to thank all the people who have organized this event. So it's the People in Leadership group from the British Chamber. It's Wei and Rebecca and the Secretariat, and a huge thanks, of course, to our sponsors, to Alte Domus and to Lux States. Thanks to all of you for the support. Minister Lenert, I can just wish you all the best. I would really like to conclude coming back to you. I know the times are going to be challenging, even more challenging, the weekend ahead, the weeks ahead. So you talk a lot about personal responsibility, and looking around me, I think all of us looking around us, it's a concept that is not clear to everybody what personal responsibility is. The concept of herds and of moving all into one direction. I think it's also in taking your personal responsibility. We are absorbed by things people say, by their form of leadership. So I hope really that what you're going to do and what you're going to say is going to convince people that the message is going to come across, and that all of us, we can move into 2021 where we're going to be safe again, and we're going to be more cool in what we're going to do. Really, thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
All the best.
Nice bracket.
And let's meet again soon for a lunch meeting together with the British Chamber of Commerce. I hope we have your commitment to come back to a real life lunch meeting in 2021 once all of this is over. We would love to have you with us.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. Have a great evening. Stay safe, and great leadership to all of you.